Welcome back to Area DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and today, before we get into what we're doing today, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that little bell so that you are notified whenever we have a brand new video here on Area DMG, because you're going to be seeing a lot of quick 10-minute videos that are a little bit like this. This is a viral speak. What's viral speak? Well, hit those comments and ask me some questions. Okay, hit those comments. We'll eventually open up some interesting stuff for you to give us feedback and even send us stuff and all that in the near future. So look out for that. But basic idea with viral speak is, I'm going to rant for about 10 minutes about all sorts of different subjects. Today, I want to talk about a documentary I saw on Hulu. But before I do that, I want to make a comment on what NoCom is. Now, NoCom, sorry for that clap, by the way, but yeah, NoCom would be no commentary. So, we're trying to hit 300 videos a year, right? And we want to actually have more consistent uploads. In order to do that, sometimes I might have to do some game footage for you that is just me playing a game. No commentary whatsoever. Now, some of those are going to be pretty useful. So what I'm going to do is some of those will be level by level walkthroughs, essentially, of certain games. So no commentary, just solving something. So that might actually be pretty good. We want that to be useful because you get a lot of people who are like, I need to find a level. Oh, maybe there's something I can see on YouTube. And they go to YouTube and they're like, it's like, what's up, bros? Or something like that. Or I don't know. What do these people do anymore? They're all like, you're listening to Phil Wesley or something like that. I don't know. I honestly, the big person who would really do those kind of weird, obnoxious openings now does videos where he talks into the camera about a variety of different subjects and even pretends to be all sorts of news. And I think like the big thing now is people pretending to be news anchors like Scarce and Philip DeFranco and PewDiePie, yeah, or rather Felix Schellberg, or I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm very sorry. He should just take his fiance's last name. I don't know what Marzia's last name is, but it's got to be more pronounceable than Schellberg. I don't know. He should do that. He'd be like, oh no. What he should do is they should take a hyphenated last name, where his will be Schellberg, her last name, and hers will be her last name Schellberg or whatever, just to confuse people. I kind of wish we were in like a Jennifer Government style future where people's last name would be just the company they work for. Yep. And be like, oh, you're Philip this or that. And then that's actually would be kind of fantastic. If you've never read Jennifer Government, go check it out. I fully recommend it. But back to the NoCom and back to what I'm going to talk to you about, which is Batman and Bill. And let me get right down into it. No commentary videos are a way of, getting more content out there because I want to try and get it so we're giving you more content every single day of your life. Every single day of your life. If I had a way to record 3DS and DS footage, oh my goodness, you'd already have like every single stage of a Winden or Elite Beat agents up there already be like do 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 do, yeah, or Band Brothers or Jam with the Band. Oh, those are fantastic. Which, by the way, I do owe you guys some piano music. I know. Oh, Philip Wesley, you gonna give us some piano music? I'm like, yes. It's not me on Spotify. Nope. That is a different me. That's not me. It's alternate universe me, I think. That's the me that found the infinity piano. I kind of feel like people with my same name, in my head, they're all alternate reality versions of me. And I feel like the world feels more awesome that way. Be like, there's the me that collected all the Infinity Stones and destroyed the world with a snap of the fingers. Like, Yeah, something like that. You're like, what did you do? What did you do? And I'm like, oh man, I will talk about that at some point, but not in this video. Anywho, the alternate reality version of me, that's on Sirius XM as Philip Wesley, makes some awesome music, and you should check out his stuff. He's legitimately a nice person. Well, he's always been nice to me. And many of the other people, I'm like, yeah, that's just a thing I do. When I got on Facebook, first thing I did was look for people with my last name and add them, because I'm like, some way, somehow, you're related to me in some way, somehow. I don't know. Why not? Just build an army of people with the same last name because it's cool. Anyways, speaking of last names, there's some names that people don't necessarily know when it comes to Batman. Batman. Batman is kind of a. Batman's a hero that I like, although to be perfectly honest, growing up, I liked Batman. I just felt like he was kind of, yeah, okay, this is going to sound bad, but I kind of liked Superman a little bit more than Batman, and I really liked Doom Patrol. Oh, and the Green Lantern Corps, and Green Arrow, and there were a lot of these old DC characters. I mean, I watched the old Adam West Batman. I liked that. I liked the old detective comics there, you know? And I always thought that was kind of interesting, but I felt that Batman was kind of a hypocrite. Like a bit of a vigilante. He's kind of like the Punisher in a cape and cowl. And I was like, that's okay. I mean, I didn't really specifically be remember when Bane broke his back in the comics and everyone's like, oh no, it's doomed. And no, I just felt like that was just meh. At that point, I was mad. I think I was mad at DC Comics for something else, which I'll get into why I stopped reading Marvel and stopped reading DC back in the 90s in some other video. Not this one. This one is about the NoCom thing, a little bit about what these viral speak videos actually are, and a little bit about Batman and Bill, which, let me bring up my information on this. Batman and Bill is an American documentary film that premiered on Hulu on May 6, 2017. Directed, written, and produced by Don Argo and Sheena M. Joyce, it explores the creation of the Batman, how Bob Kane was accepted as the sole creator, and how Bill Finger was never credited for his work despite him creating the entirety of the Batman mythos. It's based off of the book by Mark Tyler Nobleman called Bill the Wonder Boy, the secret co-creator of Batman. It has music by Brooke Blair and Will Blair, no relation to Mary Blair, who, oh my gosh, I think there's there should be, if there's not a documentary about Mary Blair, there needs to be a documentary about Mary Blair, because she is integral to Disney as a whole. There are certain people who, like the 9 Old Men, who added to Disney innumerable progression, really good. Like some of these people, if there were a documentary about Brenda Chapman, I would watch that. You know, the lady that produced Prince of Egypt, and then Lassiter, that Hawaiian shirt wearing, just it just makes me mad what he did to Brenda Chapman's original vision with Brave, or rather The Bear and the Bow, which is a better. Anyways, let's get back to Batman and Bill. Basic idea with Batman and Bill is that, well, a long time ago, there was Bob Kane, who worked for, back then DC was called something else. I forgot what they were called. Lubrication Industry. I don't know. Liberation Press or something like that. Lubrication Press. That's probably not what they were called, but I also don't care. And they can bite me. Anyways, they actually have a history of mistreating creators. Like they did to the people who created Superman is kind of criminal in my opinion. And what a lot of these large companies do to small creators is insanely bad. I know a lot of different artists. I see them at conventions. I love their work. I like their work on Facebook. I sometimes talk to some of them on Twitter. I've known some of these people for a long time, and I appreciate and love their artwork because there are a lot of really great creative people. But what happens sometimes with the internet is you'll find people will create knockoff products, or Hot Topic will steal art from DeviantArt. Oh man, even to a point where hell, there was a Capcom produced Okami for the Wii, there's versions of that cover where the cover art still has an IGN logo on it. That is how shady so many companies can be. Back in the day, they didn't even credit people properly for video games. A lot of our earliest video games, we almost have no idea who created a lot of them, and that's really a shame. But going back to this, Bob Kane was all like, I think you're making a hero. I don't think it works out well. Hey, Bill, can you come take a look at this? Bill Finger's all like, yeah, I'll come take a look at this. And then Bill Finger pretty much wrote everything for it, created essentially Batman. Bill Finger, more than Bob Kane, is responsible for the creation of Batman, the Batman mythos, which would be like, like Two-Face and the Penguin, the Joker, Scarecrow, Catwoman, the Penguin. Like, did I already mention the Penguin? I think I probably did. But yeah, the majority, like Robin, Bruce Wayne, all of Batman's backstory, that's all Bill Finger. And he died penniless and alone in his apartment. His body was discovered days after. Like, the whole thing is just heartbreaking. And he didn't get any credit for it until he was alive. And the only good thing that really came from Batman versus Superman, aside from the Martha memes, is that for the first time ever on a Batman property, between Batman versus Superman and Gotham, Bill Finger was credited as the co-creator of Batman. For the longest time, we thought it was Bob Kane. And that was completely wrong. It would be like if somebody named Daniel whatever or Gregory whatever actually created Spider-Man and then Stan Lee just took credit. No, I don't know if Stan Lee created all those characters. Who knows? We might not know. But I know, actually, to be honest, he probably did. I mean, Stan Lee's a pretty upstanding person. Excelsior! And it'll be, like, I hope that we somehow find a way to, like, keep putting him into Marvel movies in some way. Just like, you know how we have a hologram Tupac? We need to have a hologram we need to have a hologram version of Stan Lee so we can keep putting him into Marvel movies in some way. Just make him into a virtual actor, like something out of the movie Sim 1, or I think it was like The Congress with Robin White, right? Or however you pronounce her last name, the lady that was Buttercup in The Princess Bride. She was in a movie called, I think, the Congress, or something like that, where they create a virtual version of her and then it starts to bleed into anyways, that's a whole different thing. I'm getting off on a tangent. Let's get back to Batman and Bill. I watched this movie today on Hulu and it's just heartbreaking in parts. I felt so bad for Bill Finger and then his son Fred Finger, and then I'm not going to spoil what other characters or whatnot are in it, but the whole movie just it has so many little twists, and it is a little bit slanted. It's like one of those where they are trying to make you feel a particular thing. There is an agenda to it, and that's what people need to realize. Documentaries are almost never fair. Unless it's archival footage, there's always some kind of slant. How much of a slant depends on where you're going into it, and kind of like a good rule of thumb. Does that documentary have long panning shots with brooding music and maybe a narrator? Okay, if it's got a narrator like, say, a Morgan Freeman or a Forrest Whitaker or whatnot, someone's trying to pull something over on you. And you'll see that in a lot of documentaries. You'll get that scary voice type thing. It's like, in a world where steel doesn't melt by jet fuel or whatnot. And you're like, oh, good Lord. And then there's stuff where they'll downright lie. 60 Minutes used to do this all the time. Before we came up with the idea of fake news, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, these were people where they were editing photographs to make our troops appear bad. You look at what happened to all of our vets after Vietnam, that was completely unfair, and it was entirely the fault of the media. CNN frequently would lie about things during the 90s, and we couldn't call them on that because a lot of that information didn't get known until like around 2000 or so. There used to be websites devoted specifically to be like, hey, here's what happened, here's what was reported. And that's a shame. But yeah, documentaries are essentially, for the most part, unless it's an educational documentary, like it's intended, like, okay, here's a little bit of history. Generally, all documentaries have some kind of purpose or drive. In this one, they're trying to make you feel about Bill Finger. They're letting you know about his story, which is horrifyingly tragic. And they're not trying to make you feel like Bob Kane is some kind of charlatan, but I mean, they put in like, oh, he said this and this about it. Like he said at this point that 50%, 75%, this was Bill Finger. And then he says like, oh, we should give him some more credit, etc. But there's a difference between what people say and then what they do. Bob Kane is not apologetic, and he was not apologetic. Bob Kane is essentially a psychopath or a type of like different spectrums of psychopathy, like narcissistic personality disorder, etc., etc. But Bob Kane's apologies aren't apologies because they didn't have any action attached to them. An apology without action, it's like, oh, yes, I am aware that there is a problem with this, and maybe this person should totally get credit for it because they really did contribute a ton to this, and they really did make all this work, and I wouldn't be here without them. But don't expect me to do anything about it. It's a belling the cat situation. If you haven't, if you don't know what I mean, there's a little folk tale about these cats that, these little mice that decide that, you know what, the cat is killing too many mice. We need to find a way to put a bell on the cat so that we know when the cat will be around. And then the mice are like, yes, this is a fantastic idea. And then a tiny little mouse comes up and says, so who's going to go out there and put the bell on the cat? And then all the mice are like, let's not discuss belling the cat ever again. And that's what happened. With a lot of this credit, there were parts there where you just need to watch the documentary. It's well worth your time. It's about like, let me check and see how long this documentary is. 92 minutes. It's an hour and a half. And it's got a lot of, it's on Hulu, so it's worth checking out. And yeah, I mean, this documentary was really good. I felt it completely captured a lot of spirit of that time, and the little bits of animation between that were done in the old detective comic style were fantastic. And I felt kind of a genuine connection to Bill Finger's story in this particular documentary, mainly because he got screwed out of so much there. And it sounds like he didn't really fight back in that because he's kind of what you would call there's certain types of people. Depending on your upbringing, you're either one of two types of people. You are either a person who has a lot of empathy, or you're a monster. And generally the people who are monsters take advantage of the people who have some type of empathy, some type of creative thing. You need to see the people who draw, who create music, who create art, who create even stuff like YouTube and stuff. The people who go out there and create, the creatives, they are the people who give to society, and then they're the people who take from society. Now, there's actually more creatives out there, more normal people with normal empathy out there than there are these people who are thieves and parasites. But sometimes the thieves and parasites will zero in on a person and then just abuse them for years and years, even decades, which is what happened with Bill Finger. And watching through this, I felt that like this was a genuinely awful story, but the way it ends, it does end with some hope. And like I said, Bill Finger is now credited for being the co-creator of Batman. And I feel that in order to appreciate those seconds of footage, that name right there, you really have to go and watch through the entirety of this video, this movie, and watch the highs and the lows of Bill Finger's life, and understand the genius, the nice guy behind this. Imagine if Stan Lee were never given credit for creating Spider-Man or some of his other creations? What if those were taken away from him and he died penniless and alone to an extent? Just kind of partially he's kind of shy and secretive. Most people who are creatives are like most of us are introverts. Some of us are extroverts, but most creative people are introverts because well, sometimes we don't start like that. Many of us are very outgoing. We're like, yeah, look at this art here. This is cool. I want to make this for you. I want to share this with you. Because when you have a gift, you don't hide it under a bushel. You don't keep it to yourself. You have to share it with people. It's the torture of being creative that you have to share that with people. And sometimes you'll find the people who are like, this is some amazing light. This is an amazing talent. This is my talent. You see, for every Nikolai Tesla, there is always what was it, Alexander Bell or Graham Bell or whatnot? Yeah, Edison. Sorry, Thomas Alva Edison. For every Tesla, there's an Edison. For every Bill Finger, there's a Bob Kane. And I felt that this documentary just presented this in such a way that I wholeheartedly recommend you check it out. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen this documentary. It's on Hulu. You can get Hulu right now on your Nintendo Switch. It's also on the PS4. It's also like, heck, I have a Blu-ray player that has Hulu built into it. I have a TV, for crying out loud, that has Hulu built into it. The Nintendo 3DS has Hulu built into it. Yeah, not built into it. You can download it, if I remember correctly. You can see Hulu on a variety of things, like on a Roku pad or on an Amazon Fire Kindle thing. It's on everything practically. It's on your phone, for goodness sake. You can access Hulu. You should access Hulu and you should check out this documentary because I wholeheartedly recommend it. My review on it is, yes, it is a little slanted toward Bill Finger because that's the subject that they're trying to present to you with. They're not trying to build character development for Bob Kane or whatnot. They just want to let you know the situation. There is a little bit of, I feel, extraneous hyperbole in here. And you'll see that in all sorts of documentaries. Sometimes a good documentary isn't just information. It has to present the information in a way that's suitable and interesting. And sometimes if you don't have an interesting subject, or you have a subject that seems kind of mundane, you can make that by interesting with hype. This one doesn't require any hype, which I'm glad about. I've seen documentaries like, there's this one I think Spike Jonze did called Paper Boys. And it's about the people who deliver the paper and how that's a dying profession. And I think it's by Spike Jonze. It might be Michael Gondry. I'm not sure. Or Mark Romanek. I'm not sure. I have to check. It's released by Palm Pictures. They also did a documentary called Gunner Palace, which is amusing because the entire documentary is anti-Gulf War, like Operation Enduring Freedom. You know, when we went in and we invaded Iraq and to take out Saddam Hussein because of FBI and CIA reports which said there were weapons of mass destruction, which we kind of blindly trusted the FBI and the CIA, and they're like, yeah, let's go in there and do this. And the Gunner Palace is kind of like weirdly, it's trying to be like, oh, this is bad, etc., etc. But you've got like this over dramatic narrator who's talking about footage, and you're sitting there watching the footage, and you're like, what he is talking about here is not conveyed by this footage. It's released by Palm Pictures, and it's one of those where I recommend people check this one out. It's kind of like if you've watched anything by Michael Moore. Everything by Michael Moore is slanted in a particular way because he goes into it with a particular agenda, and if the facts don't match that agenda, he'll edit and change it to make that match, kind of like what the New York Times or the Washington Post or the LA Times and stuff would do. What CNN did and 60 Minutes did for the longest time during the 90s. I mean, You had 60 Minutes blowing up trucks to cause a recall of a particular Ford vehicle so that they could buy stock on the cheap. Think about that for a moment. Even documentarians are trying to sell you something. In this particular case, there is money involved with this particular credit, and they don't gloss over that fact. But the majority of it is focused on getting that credit out there. And I feel that for this particular documentary is about a noble cause. Getting a creative person the credit they deserve for their creation is incredibly important. It's important that we have a record of who did something, who made something. Otherwise, you end up with things where you're like, oh yeah, William Shakespeare wrote all these plays. Sure he did. But yeah, you end up with like essentially issues. You end up with the wrong people getting the credit for something and getting the glory for something. Like, even if they're not people who seek glory, like Bill Finger doesn't seem to have ever sought glory, essentially. He just was like, there's this thing, this is popular. I made this. I'd kind of like my name on it too. It would be like, say, R.L. James, or is it E.L. James or whatnot, crediting Stephanie Meyer for her books, you know what I mean? Or if J.R.R. Martin were honest and was like, yeah, the majority of my ideas are in other books, and I just stitched them together, but, maybe an acknowledgement of that. I mean, we'd all like for J.J. Abrams. Is it J.J. Abrams? Yeah, to acknowledge. Is it J.J. Abrams, or what is that guy's name? The one that made Firefly. It would be nice if the guy that created Firefly would actually acknowledge that he's just copying the plot of Outlaw Star. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, Batman and Bill is an amazing documentary, and you should go check it out. It's like 90 minutes long or so, 92 minutes long, about an hour and a half, and it flies by. You'll watch this and be like, wow, Bill Finger is an amazing underdog. You need someone to root for. And everything that flies into this, every little bits and pieces, the highs and the lows, there are parts where it peaks and you're like, this is going to be good. Nope, something happens. It just, that struggle to get to that actual credit is worthwhile and worth checking out. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen it. Also, because Viral Speak will be kind of a more freeform thing, let me know if there's any topics you'd like me to talk about. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that share button if you haven't already. Ring that bell if you want to go ahead and be notified whenever we have brand new content. And until the next video comes out, you are now caught up.